You're watching iRacing on the Ghostfire Media Network.
And welcome everyone to round 18 of the AOLL Cup Series. I'm Josh Laston. I will be alone tonight because we do have a little bit of an interesting race tonight. Tonight is going to be the Cup introduction of some of the TNT drivers. So we are actually going to have a bunch of new faces for anyone that does watch on Thursday nights. You're going to get to see the likes of Blake Ziti, Sean Carmody, Carl Henderson, Chris Oliver, and Nick Adams. So it's going to be an interesting night because there's no way around this. We're at Pocono, and it's called the Tricky Triangle for a reason. All three of the turns at this track are completely different from one another, and it takes a bit of a road racer's mentality to be able to do this because you do not get to learn each corner the same. So the biggest things that we're going to have to watch out for tonight outside of the TNT drivers is speed off of the tunnel turn, which the tunnel turn is turn 2. It's mirrored after Indy, and if you don't get a good run down to it or out of it, your entire lap is pretty much done. And then, to go along with that, we also have to worry about everything else going along and the race down the front stretch. Turn 3 is flat and difficult to maneuver, but tonight's setup, it's relatively planted, so we aren't going to see many spins, so I'm looking forward to a very fast, very hard-fought race tonight. So let's go ahead and see where we are in terms of our qualifying. Right now, Justin Anderson, who has put in his full times, is sitting provisionally on pole. And right now, we're actually watching one of those TNT drivers, Sean Carmody, this is Blake Ziti, out there putting in his times, and of course the tower is screwing up on me, so let's go ahead and go back around here. And this is a 2.5 mile track, so it's going to take a little while for everyone to get around, and it's going to be difficult for everyone to reach the point that they're going to be lapped. So we should be seeing a lot of cars on the lead lap tonight, and we are going to see a lot of high-speed racing as we see Blake take a little bit of that. Let's go ahead and jump over to Mr. Adam Wood, who is making his way into the pits. So let's see who else we have out on track right now. Seems to be only our TNT guys still out on the track, and this is Nick Adams making his qualifying debut in the Cup Series. And for anybody that has watched much of the TNT, Nick has had some issues with qualifying in the TNT, but right now he's sitting 13th in the standings, and we are going to have a big field tonight with these new guys. Right now, we have 22 people who have set lap times, and it looks like we are done. So let's go ahead and bring up the grid. So on pole right now, we have Justin Anderson in second place, Mike Bass, third place, Joshua Hanner, fourth place, Blake Gordon, fifth, Andrew Burgess, sixth, Brian McFerrin, seventh, Tony Pandon, eighth, Adam Wood, ninth, Joe Dinsmore, 10th, William Klingbill, 11th, Ed Springer, 12th, Jason Swan, 13th, Nick Adams, 14th, Mike Burgess, 15th, Sean Carmody, 16th, Johnny Downey, 17th, Carl Henderson, 18th, Ross Gage, and let's go ahead and move this along. 19th, John Gordon, 20th, Kevin Haas, 21st, Chris Oliver, 22nd, Blake Ziti, 23rd, Steve Gottschalk, 24th, Chris Piscini, 25th, Kevin Pearson, 26th, Timothy St. Jean, and 27th, Don Warnke. And from 23rd on down, they did not set times, so we will see if they are actually going to be starting the race tonight. So everyone is lined up and ready to go. So this race is going to be 70 laps tonight. And hopefully we don't get many cautions. Otherwise, this could take a little while because caution laps are slow. But so you don't have to hear me the entire time. We are going to be bringing up some of those TNT drivers to get some thoughts on their first experience racing with the top flight of this league. And just to let everyone know, right now, Carl Henderson and I was supposed to have Larry Patrick in the booth. Unfortunately, he has sick children, so he is not with me tonight. Larry will most likely be in the booth going forward on Sundays with either Carl or I, but we're going to alternate weeks to try to get some experience before we move up next year full-time with these gentlemen. But it should be a great race. I'm sad to not be running Pocono, but I do love this track because I love anything that is fast and runs like a road course. But as we are coming out of turn 2, everyone is lined up side by side and ready to go racing. And we will be green in just a few moments. And it does look like all the gentlemen that did not set lap times are actually out on the grid, so we are going to have 27 out there tonight with Timothy St. Jean, the recent TNT Season 2 champion, bringing up the rear, but he will not be staying there as the pace car is off and we are going green, and Justin Anderson gets out to a reasonable lead over second and Mike Bass with Joshua Hanner right in tow. But that inside line did not slow up, and Justin was not able to get much of a run in front as Joshua Hanner looks a little bit to the outside as Mike Bass drifts very high. And we're starting to see, we have Andrew Burgess getting a little loose coming out of 1 and dropping back in the field as the front 6 are going single file going into turn 2. And this is going to be the most important turn, and where we're going to start to see people dropping farther back as Mike Bass does not get very low, and Blake Gordon gets around to take over third place, and he is going to set his sights on Joshua Hanner and is dropping very low in turn 3 to try to get a good run on Hanner. He is right up there on his bumper. He's going to be able to get side by side with him going into turn 1 and make the pass as we have action in the back. It looks like John Gordon gets around. Take a quick gander to see what happens here. Just gets a little bit loose. And unfortunately, takes out the 5 of Don Warnke. But let's get ourselves back live because that's not bringing out a caution as Blake Gordon gets around Joshua Hayner, and let me see if I can figure out what happened there. And there does not seem to be anything there, but he got the pass done early, as we're starting to see a little bit of side-by-side racing farther back in the field. Joe Dinsmore, who started in 9th, is up 3 spots. And now 4 as he gets a pass done on Tony Pandon. And Brian McFerrin is right on his bumper and looking to take advantage of Tony going a little bit high in turn 1 and may be able to get a run coming out of there. And it's a long drag race into turn 2 as we're starting to see a bit of separation between Mike Bass in 4th and Joe Dinsmore in 5th. But we should be seeing that shrinking very quickly as he's able to get a little bit of a draft, because he's only roughly 1 second back, and with these cars that should be just enough to be able to get a good run going forward. As we're starting to see a pack right in the back. This is the battle for 10th with Nick Adams in 10th, and there is a gaggle behind him that seems to include Nick Adams, William Klingbill, Sean Kermode, and Andrew Burgess, who has dropped 8 spots to be part of this group. And we're starting to see everybody end up single file at this point through to the back of the field with just a few exceptions. But this pack is relatively tight at this point, so we are not seeing much going on. As I move back forward going into 3, we see Tony Pandon get around Joe Dinsmore. He's running a very low line right now to get around him, and that is going to be detrimental to these tires. We're definitely going to be seeing a 2-stop race, because these cars are only going to be able to do about 30 laps tonight. And unlike most nights, I'm not having Carl just throw random numbers. Actually ran that one myself, but that was also with no traffic. These guys may be able to stretch it out and make it a longer run while they're running in traffic. But we have seen a 2-second gap from Mike Bass to this battle for 5th right now. And we should be, I'm hoping to see a little more action as we go back up front. This pack of 4 drivers, nobody's relinquishing any kind of a gap. We see Justin Anderson go a little bit low, hoping to break some of the draft that's coming up behind him, because this, again, is a very, very long straightaway track where all of them, if you have somebody too close and drafting up behind you, they will catch you, even if you have 0.2 of a second, as we see Blake Gordon doing just that, getting right up to Justin Anderson. It's looking like he may try to go down low into turn 2, but he is unable to get it done at this point. But as long as he's there coming out of turn 3, we are going to see a fun drag race down the back, as Joshua Hanner is under pressure right now from Mike Bass, as we can see that gap that has developed between 4th and 5th right there, as Blake Gordon dives low trying to get around Justin Anderson. He gets next to him and he is going to make that pass, but Justin Anderson is higher, should be able to get a good run coming out of 1. And this is going to be a tight battle going into the tunnel turn, as Blake is still down below him, but Joshua Hanner is enjoying every second of these two battling, because he can conserve tires and he can just wait for them to slow down from their racing. But Justin Anderson running in 2nd and under pressure. And right now we're actually seeing Chris Piscini, one of the newcomers, has moved up 12 spots from 24th into 12th. He just started at the back of the grid, and he is fast. And he's just biding his time and making his way up towards the front. As Justin Anderson, coming back out of turn 1, goes a little bit high. And that leaves the door open for Joshua Hanner, as all of them have caught Blake. One would think with the skill that he has, he'd be able to try to pull away, but with the long straights, it's not going to happen. But Justin Anderson has opened up a gap, as jumping back a little ways, we can see Sean Carmody has moved up 6 spots into 9th and is currently leading this pack. And it is tight the whole way back in that group, as we're seeing Andrew Burgess get down low on Chris Piscini, who in the process of running high dropped a few spots, but should be able to get a great run coming out of 2 and be able to push Adam Wood going through into the tunnel turn. He gets around as Adam goes up into the wall, causes a little bit of chaos. And that exit just cost him quite a few positions. As we are 10 laps in, we haven't had a caution yet. We've had a few moments that it looked like it may need to bring out a caution, but Joshua Hanner drops down below Justin Anderson. He should be able to get this pass done coming out of 1. But Justin, as Blake drops very low to break the draft, and that actually hurt Justin Anderson and his run. But he's right there, ready and waiting for turn 3. He is up on the bumper of Blake Gordon right now. Backs off a little bit in turn 3, but he's looking like he's going to get a run coming out of 3 and should be able. As Blake, he's playing games and trying to keep that draft down, but Joshua Hanner manages to get a good run, get up close to Justin Anderson. But Joshua Hanner is just currently running his race, not playing the games, jumping down as much as he should probably at this point, as he does dive down, gets a run, gets below Justin Anderson going into turn 2. He'll have the preferred line, but Justin will be able to carry a little more speed. But Joshua Hanner, these guys are going to fight all the way through turn 3, and Justin's in the better line to get a run coming out, as they are side by side, and no one's really relinquishing a spot. But these two fighting is letting Blake Gordon just tear away from them, and this is exactly what Blake wants to see right now. Is this battle slowing these two down? It's going to burn up some tires, and Blake should... Oh, as they touch a little bit, Justin saves it. As we do have our first taker for pits, we had Timothy St. Jean. That wasn't what I wanted. And we're just going to go back to line. But Justin Anderson actually is now battling with Mike Bass. Mike does slot in behind, but he's only 0.2 of a second back, but Mike is a little bit slower seemingly coming out of turn 3, where he's dropped back to 0.3 of a second. But right now, Blake Gordon is taking off. He is 0.8 of a second in front of Joshua Hanner, and taking a very aggressive line, going down all the way to the stripe at the apex of turn 1. And the question will be, will his tires last through a full fuel stint running that kind of a line? Sorry, need a little bit of a beverage break there. So as we're exiting here, I'm going to take a quick run back. This battle for 10th has not slowed down, but we did see Chris Piscini has actually made his way in front of this pack and is trying to find his way back forward. But we're seeing these TNT guys right here in Sean Carmody. He is showing that he is ready to be running with these guys. And having run with him a ton in the TNT, that is in no way surprising. He has a great support team in the Endeavor group, and I mean, he was fast to begin with, and he's only been getting better, so it should be very interesting to see. And especially as we are coming closer to the points chase, we only have 6 more races before the field gets whittled down to 16. How many hopes are going to be dashed by some of these TNT drivers taking 2-3 points away from the guys on the cut right now? As that's actually what we're seeing is we go back to the front. Joshua Hanner is passed by Justin Anderson. But let's take a quick look at that. Just coming out of turn 1, Justin just had a great run down the backstretch. Gets it done before turn 2, and he's off to try to catch Blake as we come back live, and he is right there. This battle up front is going to be nail-biting, as it looks like these 3 are just going to continually go back and forth. As we're seeing Joe Dinsmore, who's roughly 2 seconds back, he's going to start moving himself up and hopefully putting himself back into the fighting positions, because I must have just had a bad qualifying lap, but this man has been fast, and since he has fixed his gear, I've been waiting to see him up in this top 3. And I'm going to go ahead and jump back as William Klingbill has taken the lead of this pack in the fight for 10th, though Chris Piscini is 2 seconds clear of him, as we see someone go quite wild. As was that Kevin Haas that went wide? I don't know. Doesn't count as an incident at this point. But as we go back up, Justin Anderson is under pressure from Josh Hanner, who, again, could just be conserving tires at this point, as we are still roughly 12 laps away from the expected pit window if they run them dry. But Pocono is one of those tracks that an undercut could be huge for these guys. And I would expect to see someone, as they're starting to see their lap times drop off, as right now everybody is close to 3 seconds off of their fastest lap, to where that could be a massive difference for somebody to take the risk, come in early, even though we do have a lot of racing, but we are 19 laps in, no cautions, and this battle at the front is not going away. These three guys are just tied up together. But we're starting to see this pack back in the battle for 10th as William Klingbeil goes a little bit low coming out of 1, which should give Sean Carmody a great run down here as we're seeing everybody get single file, as we're seeing the veteran of Steve Gottschalk starting to enter the battle. And he should be able to get down below Sean going into 3, as Sean does take a very high line. And that's going to leave him open for a few people to get around him. But with Sean having the preferred line around the outside, it carries a lot more speed coming out of 3, and also had the draft of William Klingbeil. So he's able to keep him at bay for another lap, but he is running a higher line, and Steve is great with his tire conservation and should be able to get him going into turn 2. Because this is definitely a turn that the outside line is not going to allow you to carry as much speed. Even though they're going to continue this battle, I want to go back up front as Blake Gordon, Joshua Hanner gets around Justin Anderson, and potentially these two are working together a little bit just to get a little bit of an extra run around Blake Gordon and keep Blake having to push as hard as he can, while these two can just keep swapping positions, conserve tires a little, and keep things moving forward. But the one thing we cannot forget right now is we have Joe Dinsmore, who is making up great time. He does have the lapped car of Timothy St. Jean, who is on fresher tires. He came in roughly 10 laps ago. But he is able to use Tim to catch these front runners, and he has Brian McFerrin in tow with him. So once these two get caught up to our leaders, we could have a 5-way battle going for the lead, as we are starting to see more people enter the pit lanes. Nick Adams has entered. Adam Wood has entered. And these guys are going for the undercut. They're roughly going 1/3 of the distance. But no one is going to forget some of the chaos that unfortunately the Ghostfire Media viewers didn't get to see, because we did not broadcast the Sportsman race at Pocono. We ended up going green flag for most of the race, but in the last few laps we ended up going green, white, checkered, and some people took enough fuel, some did not, including myself. And that has to be sitting in the back of these guys' heads to just run it dry, because who knows when the caution is going to come out, if it is, and these guys are going to have to be prepared to make it an extra 20 miles roughly with caution if we do go green, white, checkered. But we see Blake Gordon, or Justin Anderson, and Joshua Hanner go into the pit lane in succession, as Timothy St. Jean on newer tires is currently running a half-second faster than Blake Gordon on those fresh tires. He gets around, and he's going to actually be able to give Blake the first tow that he's had in 20 laps to be able to get himself a little bit of extra speed, and that's going to hurt the undercut that Justin Anderson and Josh Hanner are hoping to get, but Tim is even dropping Blake right now on those newer tires as Blake Gordon is coming into the pits. So we're going to see where this is actually going to shake out. Joshua Hanner and Justin Anderson, but Joshua Hanner actually left Justin 0.8 back. So we're going to see where on this pit cycle these guys are going to get around. So let's actually bring up the map as Joshua Hanner and Justin Anderson are coming out of turn 3 right now, and Blake still has to put on his inside tires to where he is going to end up losing this position to Josh Hanner and Justin Anderson. As Joshua Hanner, there he is. Blake is coming out. He's going to be a little bit slower than these guys to start, but he's going to be able to go that one lap farther on this next stint. But we are 25 of 70 into this race, and he is a little bit slower because his tires are cooler, but he will be able to start catching a draft off of these guys, close that gap. But for the time being, his lap times are not going to be significantly faster. As let's go ahead and see Justin Anderson, as we are coming up to the point to where, yeah, those laps aren't exactly going to make that much of a difference. But Joshua Hanner and Justin Anderson was faster on that last lap, where we can see that gap has shrunk as we see Josh Hanner get a little bit loose in turn 2. But it seems to be going backwards. As we come across the line, we're going to be able to see what that delta is, as Jason Swan, who did inherit the lead, entered the pits. And it looks like the only person who has yet to pit is Don Warnke back in 23rd, as Joshua Hanner looks around the outside of Justin Anderson. And that opens up the door for Blake Gordon, who has the draft from Joshua Hanner, gets right up on the bumper, gives both of them a little bit of extra speed. And they have left him in the dust. But right now, we are right back where we started on the pit cycle. And these guys, as Blake Gordon is looking to get around Joshua Hanner, he does actually get his nose underneath, has a great run going down into 1, and is going to push Josh Hanner a little bit higher than he's comfortable with. But he's going to battle back on that outside line, carry a little more speed going into the back stretch. And Joshua Hanner will keep the position for the time being. As Blake gets squirrely in turn 2, which is going to open up that gap and open up an opportunity for Justin Anderson but he does not find a way to capitalize because he had to slow down to make sure he didn't end up taking Blake out in the process. But right now, we are seeing the continued leapfrogging of these front runners, and their constant battling is actually opening up the door for Mr. Joe Dinsmore, who behind him has Chris Piscini, who is up 19 spots right now. And if I was either of these drivers, I'd be coming over the radio saying, hey, let's just work together, get ourselves up there, and then all bets are off. But that Chris Piscini is having an absolutely great run as Justin Anderson passes Blake. I want to see what happens here. Blake tried to force Justin up a little bit higher, as Blake ends up battling back in turn 3. But let's get ourselves back to live, as on lap 30, we're just not seeing any kind of a major difference going on up here, as we have the same people in the same positions. So let's actually run down our current chart to where we have Joshua Hammer in first, Justin Anderson in second, Blake Gordon third, Joe Dinsmore fourth, Chris Piscini fifth, sixth is Brian McPherson, Mike Bass in seventh, eighth is Tony Pandon, William Klingbill in ninth, Johnny Downey in 10th, Steve Gottschalk 11th, Kevin Pearson 12th, Adam Wood in 13th, and I don't know why my internet keeps going weird on me. And Ed Springer 14th, Jason Swan 15th, Sean Carmody 16th, Chris Oliver in 17th, Carl Henderson 18th, Kevin Haas 19th, Mike Burgess in 20th, Timothy St. Jean in 21st, Nick Adams 22nd, Don Warnke in 23rd, Ross Gage 24th, John Gordon in 25th, Blake Zeedy 26th, and Andrew Burgess in 27th. And I do believe Andrew Burgess ended up having, he has parked it for the night. So he is out. But these guys at the front are continuing to battle, and Joe Dinsmore has actually closed down the gap between himself from in fourth to third. He was close to 3 seconds, and right now Justin Anderson is making a move down below Joshua Hanner. In turn 1, Josh Hanner goes a little bit higher than he probably wanted to, which is going to open up the door for Justin and Blake to push each other. Blake to push Justin down the backstretch in the run down to turn 2. And both of these guys should be able to make the pass on Joshua Hanner coming out of 2, but Blake has to take a little bit of evasive action because he was probably coming in a little hotter than he wanted to into turn 2, as Joshua Hanner has dropped quite a bit because those two had some serious speed going in there. But Joe Dinsmore in that process has closed down his gap to roughly 2 seconds to third place. And him and Chris Piscini seem to be working together and getting themselves back up to the front, as Blake Gordon gets his nose below Justin Anderson coming out of turn 1. It's a little bit early for these guys to continually keep making these leapfrogs, but Blake wants to get the extra points for leading the most laps. But they should be just kind of calming down, making sure that they do not end up, as Joshua Hanner is getting himself down below Justin Anderson. He has a great run in 3. But these two side by side, as they come close to touching there, they just need to work together and make sure that Blake can't drop them. As now Joe Dinsmore is only a 1.5 seconds back. If these guys keep making these kinds of moves, him and Chris Piscini will be able to catch them, and very quickly, as we are probably seeing the biggest gap that we have had and between these three, and that's working in Joe's favor. But I'm going to actually jump into the back, as this is the battle right now. Tony Pandon is in 8th, and we have a 5-car fight right behind him with Johnny Downey, William Klingbill, Steve Gottschalk, and Kevin Pearson all right there and waiting for a little bit of a mistake from any of these guys. But we'll move back up front again, as Justin Anderson is right on the bumper of Blake Gordon again. And the gap back to 4th has stabilized at about 1.5 seconds at this point. But let's go ahead and switch to the tower, as Blake Gordon was 0.3 seconds slower, almost 0.4 slower than Justin Anderson, and Josh Hanner had the fastest lap on the last lap amongst them. And Joe Dinsmore has been faster than all of them. And that's why that gap is starting to close down behind them, as Chris Piscini is actually dropping a little bit farther. But let's just see what these last laps are, as Blake Gordon was faster, but Joshua Hanner and Justin Anderson are close enough to where he's not going to get away. As we are starting to actually see the field very much spread out. And I'm going to go back to right now, the best runner out of our new TNT drivers right now is Sean Carmody, who is battling with Adam Wood. And then Chris Oliver is the next car behind him, as Sean and Blake Ziti, who is a lap down, is working a bit with his teammate, as Adam Wood gets a little bit loose coming out of the tunnel turn. And going into 3, seeing those 2 Endeavor guys get around and move forward. We're going to go ahead and move a little farther forward. It's Mike Bass, who is running very strong, qualified in 2nd, has dropped back into 7th, and is currently running alone right in front of the gaggle for 8th, as these guys are lined up and all within a second, just waiting. And right now, this pack is the most heated battle that we have on track, as we have passed the halfway mark. We're on 38 of 70. And Tony Pandon seems to be the cream of this little group. And we see Steve Gottschalk looking to make a move down below. William Klingbill gets the move done even before the turn, as we see Kevin Pearson go a little bit low there, but Steve is ready and waiting to make his way to the front of this group, and he is up 13 spots, currently sitting in 10th. But he is a man on the move, but not quite nearly as much as Chris Piscini, who is up 19 positions, running in 5th and currently right on the bumper of Joe Dinsmore, who has dropped back over 2 seconds from 3rd, as we are seeing that front-running group start to pull away. But they are still locked in a battle, as Chris Piscini is running a little bit wider going into turn 2. Seems to be a little bit smoother than Joe Dinsmore right now. And he may just be biding his time, making Joe use a little bit more of his tires than he wants to. And just waiting to make the pass. As we've hit 40 of 70, we may be starting to see some people come in for their final pit stop right now, because they would be able to make it to the end, and especially with this group at the front, the undercut would be huge, but they would be slower coming to the end of the race. If anybody does try to make that pit stop or make this stint last, we aren't seeing very many people right now varying too far off to where Adam Wood was the first stopper at only 21 laps in the top 18. But Blake Gordon does have 1 lap newer of tires than both Justin Anderson and Joshua Haner. And Joe Dinsmore is on the same strategy as Blake, and Chris Piscini is on the same as his teammate, as we have caution. It looks like Steve Gottschalk and William Klingbill came together as, William came up a little bit into his quarter panel. And that definitely, I'm trying to figure out, it looks, I couldn't tell you if this was a bit of a racing incident, as it looks like William came up a little bit high and kind of forced Steve to turn himself down in a little bit. But we're not seeing anyone making their way into the pits right now. But as we come to caution, let's go ahead. We'll wait and see if anyone comes in. But right now, I am actually going to bring in one of the new TNT drivers just to hear a little bit of what's going on. So let's bring in Sean Carmody. Hey, Sean, this is Josh in the booth. You got a copy?
Hey, copy.
So you are currently the front runner of the new TNT guys in the Cup. How's it feel running with these guys for the first time?
You know what? I remember this track from when we raced the Sportsman Series, and I struggled a little bit on it. I feel like I'm doing decent for the first time, but you know, it's nice. Everyone's real quick in this series, so I'm just trying to learn and latch on to somebody and see where I finish.
No, it's been a great run. You're up 2 spots. It honestly, you're making the TNT look good.
Yeah, there's a lot of good guys in here, and I'm recognizing a lot of similar faces from the Sportsman Series. So I noticed that I'm in that same bunch. There's a few new names I'm trying to follow. I'm not trying to make any waves. I'm just trying to finish the race and see how I end up.
All right, since it looks like pit stops are happening, I'll let you focus.
Copy that. Thank you.
Yep. As yes, we see just about everybody is making their dive down into pit lane. And I'm hoping I didn't just throw off Sean, as Blake and Justin were side by side, as we're going to get to see this great run off of pit road, as it looks like everybody's taken all 4. But Blake was the first into his stall. It's the first one back down, and that is just a massive group. But the person that this is going to play into their hands the best right now is actually Joe Dinsmore, who has been looking unbelievably fast, but just has not been up there able to get much of a draft off of those front runners. So him being able to have the field closed up, he should be able to battle back and really fight with these front runners going forward. But let's go ahead and real quickly, just because I want to laugh at him for being so far back, I'm going to bring in Mr. Carl Henderson. Hey, Carl, this is Josh in the booth. You got a copy?
I do, buddy. We were just talking pit strategy.
Well, and I'm glad I took you out because you're leaving me alone tonight, but it's been a great race. How does it feel being out there with these guys and honestly being able to do... Why did I just see Piscini and Hanner dive back in?
Well, that's the pit strategy we're talking about. We aren't going to be able to make it on fuel, it doesn't look like, so we're hoping maybe with topping off here and some conservation, we might be able to do it.
Huh. Well, that's an interesting... So hopefully we aren't going to see what we saw in the Sportsman Series and end up with the green-white checker. So...
Yeah, you know, we're getting about 25 laps a run here, so, you know, we're just trying to get every little bit we can and see where that puts us.
That's definitely going to be an interesting run-in, and that actually kind of excites me. So I'm going to let you get back to the team, and good luck, and keep it clean.
All right, thanks, buddy.
Yep. So that's an interesting bit of insight, getting to know that, all right, so apparently I was wrong. We have only about 25 laps, so we'll actually have to see how this strategy ends up playing out for these guys. We have only had this one caution as we are coming back to green on this lap, and they're coming out of turn 2. Those guys are going to have quite a bit of ground to make up because Joshua Hanner comes out in 13th. He should be able to get a little bit of a battle. He should be able to work his way through the field, but they are currently very much spaced out, and Blake Gordon, who is a master of restarts, with the pace car coming off, he gets to dictate when we start, and he is off, but only gets about one car length in front of Justin Anderson and Joe Dinsmore. They slot in 2 single file, so they should be able to just get all of them get great runs coming off of this corner. And this is going to be an interesting strategy, seeing if we do go green the rest of the way, as it's somewhat amazing that we had caution come out with the entire track as spread out as they were. But right now, with all these guys running side by side, we may end up having another one very soon. But I have seen many of these guys. We did have issues running in the Sportsman. So the question is going to become, does everyone have enough fuel? And if we do go green the rest of the way, will the closed circuit boys' strategy of a late pit stop actually play into their hand? Because if they can conserve, they are going to be at the back of the pack, as Josh Hanner and Chris Piscini have been separated currently by William Klingbill, who can block very well, even though he was involved in that last incident. These guys do have fast people in front of them and very strong drivers, as we see Timothy St. Jean take that turn a little bit low. But right now we're seeing Josh Hanner and Chris Piscini link up a little bit, as Josh Hanner looks like he may try to take Tim St. Jean early. But right now, Blake Gordon and Justin Anderson have taken off. Separated themselves by close to a half a second over Joe Dinsmore, and the entire field has gone single file at this point. But we're definitely going to see some people may end up trying to conserve and make sure that they can make it all the way to the end, hoping that we do get green flag. But with these two having to race one another the entirety of this stint, it could put them in a very bad position if we do have to see some pit stops going forward. And Mr. Greg Wellen, I will donate an old UPS uniform that I have from many, many years ago to him to make him wear a UPS jersey or uniform, which would, him and his Postal Service connections, should be entertaining for all of us. But we are seeing Joe Dinsmore, he could just be conserving his fuel at this point. He was one of the people that had fuel issues in the Sportsman race. So it is definitely at the forefront of his mind, making sure he can try to make it to the end of this race. As we're starting to see a lot of, we're going 3 wide back here in the battle for 10th. And that's going to slow up the entire pack back here, as they do go single file going into the backstretch. But we are seeing Josh Hanner and Chris Piscini slowly making their way up. They've made up one position at this point. But if they're trying to conserve fuel, we aren't going to see much from them in terms of passing, and they're going to hope that they make those passes when everybody else comes in to the pits. As we're closing in on 20 to go, this front pack has actually closed up, with Joe Dinsmore now within striking distance of Justin Anderson. Ready to go, as Justin keeps dropping back a little bit from Blake, but we are seeing this top 5 slowly break away from the rest of the pack. And truly end up making a little bit, as Mr. Carl Henderson, who is the last car on the lead lap right now in 24th, is the car at the back. As caution is back out, as it looks like Mr. Blake Ziti connects with the wall, takes out William Klingbill and Ross Gage. So right now, everybody should be able, we're going to be able to see everyone make their way into the pits and make it the rest of the way on this stint. So the closed circuit guys did take a gamble, and unfortunately, caution came out far too early for them. So as we're catching the pace car, let's hear right now from our sponsor, Guitar Attic. Well, apparently not.
For 20 years, the Guitar Attic has been your home for used and vintage guitars in the Daytona Beach area and at GuitarAttic.com. The Guitar Attic is your home for used and vintage guitars. Whether you're looking for that collector's piece or that beginner piece, they've got you covered With names like Fender, Gibson, Gretsch, Ibanez, Martin, Taylor, and much, much more, the Guitar Addict has all the guitars you need. And bass players, they haven't forgot about you. They've got all the top names. Amplifiers from Friedman, Victoria, Fender, Boss, and many, many more. They also have the largest selection of used pedals anywhere in the Southeast. The Guitar Addict, located at 1672.5 Ridgewood Avenue, just north of Flomish in Holly Hill, Florida. Also, check us out online at guitaraddict.com.
Please, no one tell Randy that I used the wrong commercial. But we are back as they've caught the pace car, and we are coming into turn 3, so we are going to be seeing whether everyone is going to be making the dive into the pits to make sure that they can make fuel the rest of the race, and I don't see why everyone wouldn't be making this trip in. The question will be, who takes tires? We're only a few laps in, and we're starting to see people driving a little bit more aggressive. We're starting to see everyone get a little more antsy. So, as Justin Anderson blows through his pit stall, as it looks like everybody is going to go ahead and take tires, but Mike Bass is going to take over the lead of this race. But the big thing that we're going to see here is Mr. Justin Anderson. And I'm going to get yelled at, but I'm going to go ahead and rewind a little bit because this is uncharacteristic of him. Just getting a little excited, locks up, swings the back end around, and that is going to hurt him immensely going forward. So right now, Mike Bass, who my guess is did not take tires, along with Tony Pandon, they didn't take tires. So they are, and if they did, they took only outsides. Are their lap times going to suffer dramatically because of that decision? And is Blake Gordon, who did take 4 fresh tires, going to pass them with ease? He's starting on the inside line, so he should be able to, especially going into coming out of turn 1, be able to take Tony Pandon. But Joe Dinsmore is on the outside, has moved up, and right now, Justin Anderson is in 5th from running in the front right before this pit cycle. And another, I'm going to call it strange, Nick Adams, one of the new TNT drivers, is currently running in 7th as we are coming to the restart. This is going to be very interesting because the closed circuit guys with Josh Hanner and Chris Pizzini, they're only in 11th and 13th. So that strategy, had we gone green, would have been the right call. They've got a lot of time and a lot of places to make up, and both have been fast. But we're going to be coming to green with 15 to go. It's going to be rough. But as we are in turn 3, pace car is about to peel off. And we're going to go green with Mike Bass. He'll be able to jump when he wants to jump. As he does, and gets a great run. Gets a good car length over Blake Gordon behind him, and Tony Pandon does slowly drop as we do not have a good clean run in the back. As it looks like we have caution back out on the track. And let's see this. It looks like it started with Jason Swan. As, oh, we just had a stack up on the outside. And let's go ahead and go to the blimp there. As, yeah, the outside line ends up stacked up. And that incident catches Josh Hanner, who is trying for the best finish he can get, and that is a big one. Where I don't think there were many people that were spared from that one. Let's go ahead and see this from Josh Hanner, who gets sent to the side and just ends up collecting a number of people. And so we are about, as our leader is making his way around to try to catch the pace car because they were well past it by that point. And that is not good for Josh Hanner's chances of making the chase. As that drops him back to 15th, he's going to have to come in, get a new front end on that car. But somehow, Mr. Chris Piscini did make it through all of that. But as we have caught the pace car, we're seeing Mr. Johnny Downey and Joshua Hanner making their way into the pits. Right now, he has to be hoping for a green-white checker, as these guys just had the absolute worst luck they possibly could have had for this race. So let's go ahead and take a quick commercial break and hear a little bit more about the AOLL.
The AOLL Racing League began racing in the early 90s with Papyrus's NASCAR Racing and has grown over the decades, now racing on the iRacing platform. The AOLL has 3 divisions: the TNT Series Developmental Division for our beginners and those getting back into racing, the Cup Series for our veterans and Class A licensed drivers, the Sportsman Division racing the Gander outdoor trucks with drivers from the TNT and Cup Series. You can catch all of the AOLL action here on Ghostfire Media.
As we are back, we are under caution again. And needless to say, for those who only took either outsides or did not take tires, this is looking to be the ideal situation, because Mike Bass, if he only took outsides or did not take tires, we're going to be coming back to green with only about 10 left. And that should make the end of this very interesting, as we see, I don't know who that is at the back. That's Mr. Ross Gage currently running without a front end on his car, and this is not a track that you want that. Granted, he's not going to overheat, but he is currently 1 lap down. Or no, he is on the lead lap. He's just hoping for the best finish he can get, but the lights on the pace car are off. So we will be going back green flag. And I'm almost out of soda. But this is going to be a sprint to the finish. We may be able to get to speak with Mike Bass for the first time tonight. As long as he can hold it together, he should be able to pull together a good finish tonight. But he does have some champions lurking in his rearview mirror, where he's got Blake Gordon to his outside. Tony Pandon has been flirting with the top three as long as we've been broadcasting this. But he's got Joe Dinsmore and Justin Anderson in the same line back behind him, and Nick Adams has just... Mike Bass gets a great jump. Should be able to hold on to that lead coming out of one. But Joe Dinsmore is looking on the inside right now. Brian McPherson should be able to get the position, but Justin Anderson is right on his tail. But Mike Bass and Tony Pandon is fighting on the inside. Gets the pass done on Blake Gordon going into turn 2. Should be able to get a good run, but that helps out Joe Dinsmore more than anyone as Justin Anderson tags the wall coming out of turn 2. And that's going to drop him back quite a few positions. But right now, the person that has benefited the most out of all of that is Joe Dinsmore, where he should be able to, with 11 to go, keep that podium position in his sights. But Blake Gordon gets down below Mike Bass and should be able to hold the position coming out of turn 1 and keep himself down below, but he does lay off a little bit to fall in behind him and just wait for another opportunity to get the pass. But right now, we have Tony Pandon in the lead, and that is definitely the first time we've called that, as they are going 3 wide into turn 3 as Blake Gordon just mows straight past them and takes the lead, dives very low to break any kind of a draft they may have. But Tony Pandon, with Mike Bass behind him, should be able to pull up alongside of him. He does get back into the lead with these two on the outside lane. As long as he can hold the speed, should be able to get a run on Blake Gordon coming out of 1. He's going to have the draft as Joe Dinsmore, as Chris Passini gets turned by Brian McPherson to bring out the yellow one more time. As it's really difficult to see specifically what actually happened there. So let's go ahead and bring that one back up. As Chris Passini's holding his line as, Brian McPherson kind of pulls up a little bit and sends the back end around of Mr. Passini. And that is unfortunate. He had been charging through the field, and especially with the field bunched up as much as it was, those guys, it just makes it to where he dropped like a rock and is currently all the way back in 21st in the last car on the lead lap. But that also, in the process, does help out Mr. Joshua Hanner, who, through all of that chaos, has gotten himself back up to 9th. Granted, it's a far cry from where he was. It's about the position he was in when after they decided to make that pit stop. And ultimately, it's a great run from him being taken out during that last, or 2 restarts ago. And now he may actually be within a fighting chance of a podium with this restart coming up. As we are seeing a few people look like they're going to dive in the pits, and we had about 3 people. We've had about 5 people make their run. But right now, I actually want to talk to our number 6 car and Mr. Nick Adams. Hey, Nick, this is Josh in the booth. You got a copy?
I do, sir. How are you?
I'm doing great, but not as great as you right now. Running in 6th.
Just dumb luck.
Don't call it dumb luck. We're talking about racing. You've been in the right positions.
Oh, I think I made the right strategy call. I didn't get tires on that last pit stop, but it brought me up here, so we'll see how that works. Only 7 laps to go, so if I can hold myself in a decent position, I'll be happy.
So the question is how old are your tires at this point?
Probably 24 laps, 25 laps.
So yeah, you may be in a little bit of a disadvantage, but no one in front of you seems to have taken tires recently, so you should be relatively on the pace.
Yeah, on the last restart, I was able to keep it where I wanted it. I was able to stay in the top 10, which was kind of my goal. I restarted 5th. I just wanted to stay in the top 10. I was able to hold it in 7th, and then Justin got loose, and I got 6th. So, I'm pretty confident that I can keep it here.
So how are you feeling for the first race, not in the TNT with the AOLL?
I feel good. I mean, it's nice to be in the high horsepower cars. Hate Pocono that the package stinks here, but other than that, the racing could be so much better here if the draft wasn't such a huge deal.
No, it's been a great run, and I'll let you get back to your team as we're coming to 1 to go.
Thank you, sir.
So that was Mr. Nick Adams, one of our provisional promotions for the Cup, and definitely showing why some of these guys are definitely ready to be up here, because the skill's there, and sometimes we've seen races lost on strategy, races won on strategy, and right now he's looking at the top 10 in his initial run with the Cup. And I couldn't be more happy for my teammate, but I wish I was out there running with them, because I do love Pocono. But right now, the biggest thing for me is Joe Dinsmore is starting on the inside lane in 3rd with a little bit of damage on his rear end. But he is definitely going to be a force to be reckoned with as we hit this restart. He has a long history with this league, and I have been waiting for him to continue to make his charge back up to the front. Looks like he's got great strategy calls at this point, and hopefully it will pay dividends, and hopefully we can stay green for the rest of this, because I don't want to start seeing green-white checkers, because that caused chaos the last time we were at Pocono. But we are coming into turn 3 with the lights on the pace car off, and Blake Gordon will be ready to start this pack off. As the pace car is off, and Blake gets going immediately and gets a great jump out in front of Joe Dinsmore. He didn't leave Tony Pandon, who will be able to hang on to 2nd going into turn 1, but Joe Dinsmore is below Mike Bass. Question is, will he be able to get a great run coming out of the corner with 6 to go? As Blake has just left the pack, as we are seeing a lot of cars going low. But Joe Dinsmore is not giving up on Mike Bass. He is still down on that lower line, and that's giving Nick Adams an opportunity to move forward, but Brian McPherson is below him going into 3. Question will be, who gets the better run out of these two for third, as they're getting a little close, but it looks like Mike Bass was able to carry the speed coming out of turn 3. Holds a position in front of Joe, but Joe right now, as Mike Bass taps the wall, and that's going to open up the door for Nick Adams to move into 4th. If he can get off of turn 1. And Brian McPherson is right there looking to help to push Nick Adams into 4th, as that's going to leave the door wide open for these front runners as Nick goes wide in turn 2, gets a little bit loose. But Joe now officially is holding strong in 3rd place and setting his sights on Tony Pandon. As these guys, Tony moves very low as lose him. As I'm not exactly sure what just, oh, went to Scenic. I lost them for a moment. But Nick running strong, and in 3rd, as it looks like Tony Pandon is currently MIA. Oh, he is in the race, but he did drop back, as Nick Adams just got his first win in the Sportsman Series this past week at Talladega, is currently running in a podium position in his first race in the Cup. But Blake Gordon, as we come across the line to have 3 to go, has opened up nearly a second gap to Joe Dinsmore. But let's look back at this fight for 3rd, as Nick Adams has Mike Bass get below him, and that's opening up the door for Chris Piscini. Or that's Joshua Hanner. To get behind him, as Nick is right on the bumper of Mike Bass, taking the wider line in 2, ends up relinquishing the position to Joshua Hanner, who both Josh Hanner and Brian McPherson get the pass done. And now Joshua Hanner, who was caught up in an incident quite a few laps ago, has battled his way back into 4th and is now looking to get around Mike Bass to get on that final podium position. But let's go with 2 left. Blake Gordon and Joe Dinsmore. Joe does have the draft coming out of with Blake, as these two, Blake is comfortably a 1/3 of a second ahead of Joe. But we're going to start seeing some games from Blake Gordon, especially on the front stretch. Him trying to break that draft, as Joshua Hanner makes the pass on Mike Bass to get himself back up onto the podium. But right now, as we are coming to the white flag, we see Blake drop very low to break that draft. We are going to go all the way, but Joe has a great run, is only 0.2 of a second back. This is going to be a fight coming to the checkered flag, and these two have a history of running a little bit aggressive around each other, as it looks like Joe, as Blake does try to break the draft, going into turn 2. But Joe is not going away. He is trying to get everything he can, but Blake is just a little too far forward as we have an incident in the back as Ed Springer has crashed, but I do not want to go away from this as Blake Gordon is going to cross the line as our winner with Joe Dinsmore right behind him, and then Joshua Hanner recovering from just an absolute disaster of a wreck in third. Mike Bass coming in fourth. So let's take a second and see what happened here with Ed Springer. Ed Springer was down low. Oh, as we had somebody just collect the field. Tony Pandon hit the wall and took just so much of that field out, and that's just unfortunate. But right now, let's go ahead. Back live as Blake Gordon is coming up to hopefully give us a burnout. One day, he'll actually sign his name. We've been asking for it. He tried a few weeks ago. But let's go ahead and run through the results. As I don't know why it started there. Anyway, Blake Gordon is our winner tonight with Joe Dinsmore in second, Joshua Hanner in third, Mike Bass fourth, Brian McPherson fifth, in sixth, Johnny Downey, seventh, Kevin Haas, Nick Adams in eighth, ninth is Carl Henderson, another TNT driver in the top 10, Chris Piscini in 10th, Adam Wood 11th, Timothy St. Jean 12th, Don Warnke 13th, 14th, Sean Kermode, 15th, Chris Oliver, 16th, Justin Anderson, 17th, John Gordon, 18th, Steve Gottschalk, 19th, Tony Pandon, 20th, Ed Springer, 21st, Blake Ziti, 22nd, Kevin Pearson, 23rd, Ross Gage, 24th, William Klingbill, 25th, Mike Burgess, 26th, Jason Swan, and Andrew Burgess in 27th. So let's go ahead and bring our winner in. Hey, Blake, this is Josh in the booth. You got a copy?
Yes, sir. How's it going tonight?
Fantastic. That was a great race, a great finish. How did you keep your composure knowing that you had a few places to make up towards the end on those restarts?
Well, let's talk about the restart. Well, actually, no, let's say that for last. First of all, hats off to Justin and Josh Hanner tonight. The battle we had, the three of us had really, the first 20, 30, 40 laps, I guess it was awesome. I really felt like whichever one of us played the draft right, made the right moves at the right time, could pull it off. I feel like the three of us were all but equally matched tonight. So, again, I had a lot of fun racing with those guys. Then we had that yellow come out just before a fuel window, which made things interesting, in my opinion. And then, yeah, we had another yellow, which set up the restart where we had some new faces up at the front. And, yeah, man, I don't know what happened with the restart. Green flag came out. I gunned it, and 58 was kind of just standing still. So ran into him, didn't know how bad it hurt the car. And then I know there's a big crash behind us with the accordion. So in my head, I knew I could pass those two guys. I feel like I could round them with the tires and I think just straight up having a little bit more speed than those two tonight. But I think Mike, he qualified really well. I think he qualified up in the top 4. So I knew he was going to be fast. Probably put up a little bit of a good fight. So, and then, yeah, the restart crash happened, and then made a hell of a move there in turn 3, took him 3 wide to take the lead, and then was glad to hang on to it because it's Pocono, and I'll be the first one to admit I don't like coming here, but then something this week clicked. This package, I love it here. It's great. It's a lot of fun.
No, it's one of my personal favorite tracks, but I've relinquished driving to Carl, who let me ask this question. Did you anticipate with having a bunch of new TNT drivers, us having 2 in the top 10 tonight.
I mean, they're TNT drivers, but they're fast, you know. I know a lot of these guys do racing outside of the league. So no, it's not really a surprise to me to see them up there. Those guys, they have plenty of skill. They're just in TNT for the rest of the year. But I mean, I think, you know, anyone who's been paying attention on Thursday nights has seen it. Like, these guys, they know how to drive. I think now that we're going to have a mix of cup guys and sportsman guys in TNT next year, I think some of these guys you would expect to slot in above them. I don't think that's really going to happen. I think the regulars are still going to be the 5-6 best cars.
No, tonight, until we hit that first caution, it was great watching you, Hanner, and Justin just constantly switching places, even though you did lead more in that time frame. But
yeah, I was a bit selfish. Hanner let me go. And I'm like, you know, that's great that he did that, but we're giving out bonus points for leading the most laps, and I'm kind of hungry to finally get a win. I think my last one was back at Richmond in April. So ever since Hanner joined, I've gone winless. So I was like, you know, at some point I got to stop making excuses like the setup's too tight, or I just don't like these intermediates. So once I found out this week that I actually like Pocono in this car, I knew I had a good shot tonight, because I knew Justin was going to be fast, and he was. And I knew Hanner was probably going to be fast, and he was. So it was a great fight. Yeah, it was a lot of fun racing both of them.
no, it was a great race from you. You heard me earlier. I've been waiting to have you back up at the front. It's great to see you back up here, because we've been
It's like
waiting.
I've been there, but like not on the top spot. It's funny, I guess, to me, when I can consider like second or third a bad night, just if I'm that far off of Hanner. Like, I look back at Charlotte in Texas. I mean, that guy had some magic going, and I couldn't find it. So even though I was still top 3, I felt like I was much further away than that. So glad to finally be back on top, and I'll take it and we'll move on. I don't even know where we're at next week, but I guess I'm excited for it.
We have a week off, and then we're back at Atlanta.
Okay, Atlanta's pretty fun. I know the Indy Road Course is coming up. I'm not looking forward to that, but I know we got Road America this week in trucks, so that'll be fun.
Yeah, that will be, we'll call it entertaining.
Yeah.
But no, great run from you tonight. Glad to see you back on the top spot to where Carl can be happy. And I don't know who called it, because I wasn't on the podcast this week, but I have a feeling at least someone picked you this week.
Yeah, I hope so. I don't remember. I don't think I made it that far in the show, but if they did, glad to not let you down. So I know Carl usually picks me. I know he did say this line. He's like, if I can't have Blake, I'll pick someone else. And I was like, whoa there, Carl.
Just so you know, this win does make it to where you still have the most wins in the Cup this year.
I feel like at the end of the year, it's probably going to be, I don't know, man. I mean, I guess this makes it 6. Hanner has 5. Justin has 4. I don't know. I don't know who I would put money on to come out on top with more wins this season. But you know what? The good thing is it doesn't matter. The only thing that matters is getting to the final 3 races in the top 4, and then having the best points finish in the last 3 races. So we'll see what happens if we get there.
No, great run. I'll let you get back to your team and celebrating, because you have a bigger team this week than you normally do.
I know, it's great. We had some more chatter on the radio. Unfortunately, Brandon wasn't able to race tonight, but he'll be back with us, I think, in a couple weeks. So, yeah, it's great that Blake and Sean finally up here in the Cup Series. They've definitely proven they can hang up here, and they'll get it figured out.
No, they were both running great. They just kind of got caught in the chaos, which inevitably happens. But all right, thank you very much, sir.
No problem. I think I've talked too much. Only 2 people are watching right now. I think I'm one of them, so I'll let you get to someone else.
All right, thank you, sir.
Thanks, Josh. See you later.
All right, let's go ahead and pull up our second place finisher, who I haven't gotten to talk to much, Mr. Joe Dinsmore. Hey, Joe, this is Josh in the booth. You got a copy?
Hey, Josh, how's it going tonight?
A great finish from you. I may have focused on you a lot tonight because I was hoping that you would finally make your way back up to the front, and here we are.
I did. Yep. Took me a while. From the beginning, it took me a bit. I got stuck behind a couple cars where it was a little tough to get by, but managed to get my way through. Tough break for Justin tonight.
Yeah, he got caught in a lot, especially
Yeah.
at the end.
I hate to say it, but I really think that the smash in the back actually made my car faster.
I did notice that there was a little crumple in the back, and
Yeah.
on a track like Pocono, if you can get rid of a little bit of that rear wing, you're actually going to be faster.
Yeah, I don't know how much damage. I haven't looked yet. I got to review it all, but yeah, I mean I was really afraid putting it into the turn the first lap, and it actually felt a lot better than before. So I just went with it and ran.
So towards the beginning of the race, you spent a lot of time in fourth with a gap in front of you. Were you getting discouraged, or was it just keep myself here?
Yeah, well, I was just biding my time mainly because I don't know if you noticed the first stint. Once I got through the traffic, I closed the gap to 1.5 seconds or just under that, and came out the pit stop, and then I ran them back up again before the caution started flying out. I managed to, once the tires started to wear out, I managed to start catching them again. So I was perfectly happy just running there and then just doing the seesaw until the last stint.
It was a Joe caution tonight, because that definitely did bring you back into the running, because honestly, when you were 2 seconds back and suddenly you're right on the tail, it's a whole different race.
Oh yeah, yep. I mean, I was pretty confident that I could have ran them down because they were racy up there. So I mean, if they just continue the race, as the tires wore out, I was putting down laps several tenths faster than they were when they were fussing for position every time.
And it seemed like towards the middle of that stint, you and Chris Bassini seemed to be working together to try to close that gap down. Was that actually the case?
Once he caught me, he started to just push me. I ended up using that draft a little bit to start catching with Chris. Yep.
No, it was a great race. It's great to see you back up at the front, and
yeah, it feels good.
I'm looking forward to the chase where the points to this point don't matter, and we're starting to see your resurgence.
Yeah, I'm hoping to get a win here pretty soon. These getting into the corners, everything just feels like it used to. So I'm hoping that you'll start seeing me up there. I mean, I felt very competitive again tonight, just like the last couple races. Just bad luck in my case.
So 2 weeks, we're off next week. We're going to Atlanta. How are you feeling going back to another intermediate?
It depends on the package. Again, if it's the low or the high downforce package, that will matter on tire wear. I mean, I think tire wear is usually still a pretty big deal at Atlanta, so we'll have to see how the cautions fly out. I'm hoping that we won't see them. I mean, we did do, a race and a half without a yellow, which was, pretty impressive considering the size of the fields that we've been getting.
Well, and that leads me to my next question. You guys had a bunch of TNT drivers out there. How was it seeing them out there? And we actually ended up with 2 in the top 10 tonight.
Yeah, that's really great to see those promoted drivers out there and driving folks really clean and racing well with everybody. So I'm hoping to see that it continues, and it's good to see that coming up from a league like that and all the coaching and everything that everybody's been able to give them and to help them out, and it's really amazing to see.
No, it was a great race tonight. Unfortunately, we saw the cautions breeding cautions, but the first half of the race was fantastic.
Yeah, it definitely was. Definitely turned into it was it was going to be a 3-stop race had it went green the entire time, and we had the fuel to go all three 3 stops consistent. So if it stayed green.
Were you knowing that there were some shenanigans when we were here in the Sportsman, and unfortunately it wasn't broadcast? Did you have any of those fuel issues in the back of your mind while you were running tonight?
No, I didn't have any of that. I had 0.
Well, it's good to know
No.
because I would have been scared.
No. I just, I mean, you plan these out based off of green flag runs, right? So, and running yellow flag laps here at Pocono, they're really not like the other tracks. You don't typically, I really think you actually lose time unless you can shut the motor off and coast and do a bunch of other things to try to save fuel. It's not like the other tracks.
No.
So
I'll be honest, I was kind of happy that we didn't have any green-white checkers because I didn't want any more conversations. But it was a great run from you tonight, and again, I'm hoping that this is the start of a frequent visit to the booth.
Sure. I want to thank everybody for listening in and watching, and thank you for doing this.
No,
Ghost Fire Media.
It's our pleasure. I actually told Carl he should run tonight. Supposed to have Larry in the booth, but you guys gave me a great product to get to call, and as much as I do love Pocono, I actually kind of enjoy broadcasting more.
Yeah, I did say hi to Carl during practice, so.
No,
But,
great run tonight. Excited, but we'll see you hopefully in Atlanta in 2 weeks.
Oh yeah, I'll be there. You have a great night. And
Yep.
Thanks for everybody for watching, and my team Steer Horse Racing.
Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.
So that is actually going to do it for us here tonight at Ghostfire Media. It was a great race. Just to let you know, Tuesday we are going to have the IVRL. The start time for the race is 7, but Randy and Nick like to get started a little bit earlier and do a little bit of pre-race. Wednesday we will have the AOLL Sportsman Series at Road America. Thursday we are starting the final season of the TNT, and we will be at Daytona. Friday night we have the broadcast, and no race Sunday. Everybody enjoy the 4th. Enjoy whatever it is you're going to do. But from Ghostfire Media, thank you very much, and we will see you at some point this week.